Casey, obviously, great to have you back too, because we have something interesting to get into. Certain comments by a certain Christian Pulisic have been making some headlines. Now, if you don't know by now, Christian Pulisic has a docu-series that is out, and he is lashing out now or calling out some recent criticism he has received. And he has said this, I'd say the most annoying thing. And for me, the biggest cop-out of all time is when, especially, all pundits want to say they don't want it, they didn't have the heart, back in our day, we would fight and we would die on that field. You can talk about my performances, whatever you want, but to question my commitment, especially towards the national team, in my opinion, that's way out of line. All right, so now we gotta know if he may need to, or at least these comments, get lost. Casey, I'm gonna come to you first because all of this also is stemming from recent criticism that he has gotten, especially with his absence at the Gold Cup. A lot of ex-players, especially here as well at ESPN, will put our hands up, question his commitment as well, and now he's lashing out. What did you make of his comments? Are you gonna say get lost?
For the most part, I think there's a little bit there that sometimes can be difficult to, if you're not in like a one-on-one conversation with somebody, that get kind of contextualized a little bit. But I didn't have a problem this summer with him not necessarily wanting to be in for 40 days from start to finish, from the friendlies till the end of Gold Cup. I was on many national team summers where, there was guys who had, a long season who needed to have some break before they went back. Other guys who needed every minute possible to try to prove something. Either clubs are looking at them or they just needed time with the national team. And other situations where players, they had to get back to their national team. To their club team. Because if they missed all of preseason, the chances of them earning a spot and getting significant playing time was going to be diminished. So national team managers always have to juggle those sorts of situations. I was surprised that Pochettino didn't, particularly for the two friendlies, who, in my opinion, were the two toughest matches that you were going to have in that window, because you couldn't guarantee a final against Mexico. That turned out to be a good match as well. But say, let's bring everybody in. Let's see how some of these younger guys do in training against the big guys. Let's see what the attitude of the big guys is. Let's put them in these matches and then say, okay, take a little bit of break before you got to go back and play. I was just very surprised. But what I am even more surprised with Christian is because if you know Christian, nice kid, great, real, kind of down to earth. But the fact that you want to just start re-airing all this stuff, just let it go. That's our job.
I don't think
we have to talk.
I don't think he can let it go, though, because in this docuseries, that would have been a topic. If they didn't mention it at all in the docuseries, that's more of an issue from my standpoint.
So you feel like he had to address it in this manner?
Yeah, well, I think one thing for sure here is that his perspective feels like more of a unique one than, say, generally, because most people have been very critical of him, and they'll feel they're justified in being critical in that manner. And I think for me, with Christian and with people who make decisions like this, you're leaving something open to interpretation. If you say you're not going to go, then people get in this position where they feel more comfortable questioning your character.
Right.
And I think when someone questions your character, it's very hard to win people back after that, especially when it's coming from established, iconic US stars that are speaking about something which they did themselves.
Well, that was the weird part for me, was Landon was very critical, and Landon had taken a summer off. I would have.
Did he mention that in his answer?
I don't know, because what I would have loved to have seen is Landon say, hey, look, I made this mistake. I shouldn't have done this. I wish Christian hadn't have done this.
Yes.
It's hard to say, I can't believe you did this and never mention that I did it as well. But I was a little surprised. And I think the point is, Natum is very clear, that if you choose to put yourself out there in a docuseries, then you're going to get all this stuff. I don't think you can complain then that people are criticizing you, because you chose to go put yourself out there. You made this part of what needed to be done, to Natum's point, that it has to be covered because this is all probably what Netflix is looking for anyway. is they don't care about the soccer content; they're looking for the drama.
Yeah.
And here was a piece of drama, so let's wind it up and let's get our Real Housewives moment here.
Not the Real Housewives moment. Great show. Needham, if you're his teammates, does this affect the locker room any at all? This whole fiasco that's been going on now, and then of course seeing his comments in this docuseries.
That's a good question because there's so many different sides to it.
Correct.
There'll be some people who really like Christian. There'll be some people who just play with Christian. There'll be some people that just respect Christian. And there'll be some people who'll be looking about how the managers responded to this as well. So there's a lot going on. People have got so many different views, perspectives, and sort of feelings that will come off the back of it. Like his closest allies will totally understand why he's doing it. But there might be people that say, well, he's the captain. Why is the captain doing this now?
Yeah.
There are other people who have the sole focus of, being successful for the USA. Well, if one of your best players isn't going to be there, then you're probably quite frustrated. And everyone at that point in the season that plays in sort of the European calendar is going to be tired. They've played a lot of football. They're carrying injuries and so on and so forth. So when you start sort of having somebody that's separate to the group, that can create an issue. But the point I'm trying to make is that everybody has a different look with that. And I think for me personally, as I look at the clips that have been sent out to cause
Social
a bit
media.
of a stir. They have caused a stir.
Yeah.
They certainly have done that.
Uh-huh.
And I think most players just want to mind their business. They just want to do well for their teams, whether it's the national side, club side, work hard and not have anybody ever question their character. Whereas now, for the way that Pulisic has come forward with these clips, and obviously the context might change when the full thing comes out, people are immediately asking further questions again, but not in a positive manner.
Well, and I think that for me is the easiest part how to fix any kind of character question is I'm not asking you to have a great game every time you step on the pitch. We know that's impossible. All I'm asking you is to show 100% commitment every time you step on the pitch. And I don't think anybody watching the U.S. national team over the last year can be honest with themselves and say, you've consistently seen a team that is giving 100% every time they step on the pitch. You can find a few individuals and say, okay, that wasn't their best game, or they did okay, but there was no edge to anything they've done. And I think I made a comment that it looked like in that semifinal for Nations League, like half the team was more interested sitting on the beach taking Instagram photos than being in this match. And okay,
love that.
That might be a little harsh, but the point is, I'm not being individually mean. I'm looking at a collective effort that did not hold a standard. Again, you miss a sitter, you make a mistake, that's going to happen. You can have an off day. Your touch can be off. But you can always work hard. You can always tackle. You can always try. You can make tactical mistakes. You can make technical mistakes. But effort should never be a question, and that has risen to the forefront.
But it's interesting what Casey says, though. Nathan wants to get, okay.
Just because, again, it's like that idea of, like, effort. And from our perspective, it might look that way in particular. And from when we say that, people are more likely to believe us than listen to somebody else on the backside, like for the player say, oh, no, I was trying. Because the result will also have a bearing in terms of how people feel about that.
Yeah.
And I think from our side here, as we sit down and we watch these games, we've got a level of frustration because you know what they can do.
Yes, 100%.
But in reality, most people don't perform to what they can do on a regular basis. So I get the criticism, but again, it's just dangerous because, like, I don't want to be necessarily the guy that almost feels like a contrarian in this moment. But Christian Pulisic will feel he's 100% justified in how he feels because of the things that have been said as a consequence of former players saying it. And there's this cycle to where former players overall are critical of, say, what's going on today.
You made an important point because feelings can't be wrong.
Yeah.
That's how you feel. But you can't tell me my feelings are wrong
exactly.
if you're saying your feelings are right.
Yeah.
So that's where it's tricky. I have to do my job. I have to be honest with the fans. I have to be honest and say, this is what, from my 20 years experience as a pro, what I'm seeing from this group.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to tell you that it looks great when it doesn't look great. That's my job. I should have the right to be able to do my job and say, I don't think this is good. I'm not picking on anybody.
Sorry.
Go on. No.
What I would say in regards to this is if we feel that we watch the US men's national team and the effort's not there, the criticism, I think, should go more towards the manager than the players themselves. Because the manager is going to be the one that creates the standard. He's the flag bearer for that. And if he's brought in to help the team be successful in the domestic World Cup that's going to come next year, you allow these habits to seep in, and that'll carry on for generations.
Well, I think that's interesting that you bring up, too, because just speaking on this, too, and how Mauricio Pochettino, I know we were talking a little bit off camera about it and saying how it's actually big to see how Mauricio Pochettino does handle this. But in terms of changing the culture, a couple of the players have spoken about what Pochettino has brought in as well, how he is an elite level coach from what they probably would have had respectfully in recent times. But Pochettino was the one who spoke out about that. He says he doesn't want his players to come to camp to be playing golf and taking selfies on the beach. Yes, there are parts you guys will know about being in camp to let off some steam, to have some team bonding, but not to be coming to play golf, to be on the beach with family members and doing this now. So maybe that landscape has changed, probably, Casey, do you think, to the detriment of the quality of the football we're seeing or the attitudes that we're seeing?
I think we all can look at circumstances and say, maybe golf's good for this person, maybe somebody, going and taking a little time. I'm not saying the day before the match. I'm saying if you're in a long camp, you're going to have those little bit of breaks. The judgment comes on game day. Mm-hmm. Judgment doesn't come on what your preparation's like. Now, that's supposed to help you make sure that you have a good day for when we're about to judge you. And that, to Nedum's point, is the manager making sure that everybody's getting what they need to get ready. National team's different from a club. Yeah. National team, Pochettino wants to do particular things. You don't come in, you don't do that. I'm going to tell, no, if you come in for 40 days or don't come in at all, well, but if those players don't buy in, you don't have 100+ countries to go buy players from.
Yep.
You have what you have. There has to be a point where you need to be maybe not the person you would be with the club, because you say, okay, Dan, you don't buy in, no worries. You go with the reserves. I'll just go buy somebody else. Well, I can't go buy someone else. Either I have someone or don't. I maybe have to do some things that I wouldn't do because of those just limitations that I have with my player pool.
Well, Christian wasn't the only one who had a thing or two to say. Tim Weah, his U.S. teammates, also chimed in, and he said, those guys are chasing checks, Casey. And for me, I just feel like they're really evil, honestly, because they've been players and they know what it's like when you're getting bashed. Those are the same guys that will turn around and shake your hand and try to be friendly with you. Don't get me wrong, I respect all of them. They were the players that I looked up to. But quite frankly, the guys before us didn't win anything either. Oh, my days. Pew, pew, shots fired. Casey, why are you evil and chasing checks?
I thought I was just doing my job. Look, I think, again, the easiest way to not worry about criticism from people like us is play well. It's not that hard. Just go show me that you're 100% committed, you're playing well, I'm not going to, you have a tough result, but you haven't beat a European team since the World Cup. And I think that team was Wales.
Yes.
What does it mean by that?
Big up Wales every time.
No, but you haven't had those moments that the U.S. national team consistently has had over the years where they've snuck a result in where people went, wow.
They did that.
That was a win. They had a very good run where they were winning consecutive Nations Leagues, winning some Gold Cups, doing stuff. Well, that hasn't been the case lately. So there's always going to be question marks, Mr. Weah, when you're not successful. That is just the way it is. And the only way to change that is be successful.
Well, Nedum, interestingly, because you're kind of a little bit on the outside looking in, of course, living in the UK and whatnot. So you see the criticism, and you have been, I'm sure, in the middle of criticism from the British press, which me, having lived in the UK as well, I have seen it. Casey, you're the same, and especially in Spain as well.
come start at Millwall and see how.
Yeah.
So looking at it too, and then we brought up the accolades at least that Christian and Tim Weah have achieved in the last couple of years with the U.S. men's national team. And the bigger point is that I was saying it takes me back to an interview that I had with Christian at the World Cup. And I asked him, what does he want people to think of this U.S. men's national team? And he said that he wants people to not want to play them. He likened it to the Mexico of a few years back, where he said, going up against them, Casey would know too, they make it life difficult for you. They can be very physical. They'll be chirping in your ear. They'll leave something on you. And that's the words he said. He says, we want to leave something on them. And what Casey is saying now is that when you look at this U.S. men's national team, they're just not doing that, period. So you kind of have to expect this criticism. Is it much ado about nothing, or should they just kind of say, look at the teams in Europe. Look at Messi, who even gets criticism. Look at the Latin American press as well. Do you just get on with it as part of the game?
Well, you have to get on with it because there's a game that's going to be coming. But I think in some ways, let's start by saying nobody likes to be criticised on any sort of scale. And I think for these players, not to play the age card here, but the criticism that he'll be receiving today will be different to what I received or different to what Casey received because of, say, the locations and the amount of people that can access you to give you that critique. So they're living under a different type of pressure altogether.
The social media world now.
Social media world, podcasts, shows, everything. It's everywhere if it's not going well. So they have to see it in a different way. But he's also talking
about the former players who are now pundits.
Yeah, and to be honest, that side of things, I think every word that we say matters, Especially someone like Casey talking about the US, for example, because that's his team. You mean a lot to so many people that have played the game of football or soccer in this country. But I think the issue that some of these players have, and I see this all across the world, is when somebody talks as if this is an easy solution. Just do this and you'll be successful.
Right.
Because when that message then comes from somebody who hasn't done that themselves, so why didn't you do it back then? And I think that's the perspective that these players have, which is ultimately one that not many people want to listen to. And also, they don't really get the chance to say because, as is the case with doing punditry, there's no sort of right of reply when somebody says something. You only catch it afterwards, and at that point, the damage is already done. But I think to call some of it evil, I'm not really on board with that. And the Czechs thing, that might be to someone specifically who he knows is a bad actor in terms of what they're actually saying, because they're trying to go over the top.
Right.
I think for people who work in punditry or analysis that care about the sport, care about the nation, you'll see the passion in their face, and they will say that on air and off air. But I think there are some people who say one thing on air because they know it's an easy target, but gets the
I've never been a fan of, let's just say something for the sake of saying something,
100%,
knowing that I don't believe it. If I say something, I believe it. And I'm not saying it to be mean to anybody or whatever. And I don't think I get personal with people either. So if you think I've talked about you and I haven't mentioned your name,
hit me up.
Then then you probably are thinking that yourself.
Find it.
Because I didn't mention anybody's names. So if you get insecure about it, then maybe it's because you've kind of looked at yourself a little bit.
Football, sport, all this stuff. When you represent a nation, people have opinions, and it's such a big business, such a big sport. These guys will hear the criticism, and what they sort of not strive for, but what they hope for is that the criticism that they receive will be fair.
Right.
But because there's so much emotion attached to it, a lot of the time you feel like it won't be. You hope that the impact isn't going to be on a large scale. But again, these guys, they're doing the best that they can, but the way that they are is very different to the way that it was.
Right.
So there's always going to be a split in the two in terms of how they see the game of football.
Well, we were talking about it as well off camera. This is stuff that they've invented. They've gone on social media. They've had a docuseries. They've done all this. This isn't stuff that just, I had a bad game. Now, next week, there's another bad game, so that's all going to go away because there's a new cycle to talk about.
Yeah.
Like you said, you've invented this, and you need content for this. So now you're bringing up other stuff, and you're trying to do things, and then you're complaining that, oh, I'm getting too much attention now? Then don't. Then just play. Erase your social media.
Oh, no.
Erase.
No.
Don't go on a podcast. Do an interview after a match, and go from there.
That's old school.
That's
old school.
And that's
No.
The two groups will
But
never
Natum,
mix.
I don't care. You can go
understand.
do whatever you want. Just don't complain that you're getting too much pressure when you created the pressure.
This is the generational difference I was just talking about, which is perfectly fine, but nobody's going to budge.
You know what we're going to do? We're just going to put Casey's number on a graphic at the bottom, and anybody on the
You're
US
gonna
Men's
dox
national
Casey,
team
yeah?
that has an issue with Casey or anything he said,
No, please
feel
don't do
free.
that. Please don't do
Because
that.
he's not going to talk to you on social media. He's not going to. But he will talk to us on ESPN FC. Nader Manoa has been on there as well all week. We are on every single day of the week on ESPN Plus, so make sure to catch it.